This episode is made possible by the generosity of our listeners. Thank you.
Welcome to the Creation Science
For Kids
show. Is the Bible a book of science? We look at the history of the word and how it is used in the New Testament. Then we share what we think about a new resource for public school kids to understand the truth behind their textbooks in an entertaining way, and talk about some experiments we did with crystals and minerals. Praise the Lord. I will give thanks to the Lord with my whole heart, in the company of the upright, in the congregation. Great are the works of the Lord, studied by all who delight in them. Full of splendor and majesty is his work, and his righteousness endures forever. He has caused his wondrous works to be remembered. The Lord is gracious and merciful. Psalm 111, verses 1 through 4. This is episode 54 of the podcast where we learn about Jesus, our Creator, and his amazing world. Hi, I'm Sherry Fields, your host, and I'm joined today by my co-hosts Samuel.
Hi.
Stephen.
Hi.
And Joseph.
Hello.
To follow along with what we're looking at, check out the show notes, creationscience4kids.com/knowledge. Way back in our podcast episode 11, I talked about the word science in the book of Daniel and how the same Hebrew word was used to describe Solomon, and that it does mean something very much like our word science, where in Daniel we don't have much information on what it was he was learning, but when it was describing Solomon, he was studying trees and plants and animals and things. That's definitely what we would call science, right?
Yes.
Well, today I want to talk about the word science in the New Testament. It happens right at the end of 1 Timothy. In chapter 6, the last two verses, 20 and 21, it uses the word science. Joseph, would you read them for us?
O Timothy, keep that which is committed to thy trust, avoiding profane and vain babblings, and oppositions of science falsely so called, which some professing have erred concerning the faith. Grace be with thee. Amen.
Very good. Thank you. Okay. Now, most translations do not use the word science anymore. So let's have a look. Like the Complete Jewish Bible says this: O Timothy, keep safe what has been entrusted to you. Turn away from ungodly babblings and argumentative opposition of what is falsely called, in quotes, knowledge. For many who promise this knowledge have missed the mark as far as the faith is concerned. Grace be with you. So, in the Complete Jewish Bible, what do they use instead of science?
Knowledge.
Knowledge. So that got me thinking. It's like, okay, let's find out what's actually going on here. First, we need to look where. When we want to know what the Bible says, where's the best place to start?
The Greek.
The Greek for the New Testament, and what language for the Old?
I don't know.
You don't know. Do you know?
Hebrew.
Hebrew. So for the Old Testament, when I was looking it up for Daniel and Solomon, I looked in the Hebrew. In the New Testament, I'm looking at Greek, and the word is gnosis. It has a G at the beginning, but it was silent. So, gnosis. What was cool is I was thinking that sounds a lot like our word know, as in to understand and know and knowledge. So I thought, maybe we got that word from the Greek. So I looked it up, and Etymology Online tells us that this is actually an ancient word. It's quite possible that a word that has some similar sounds to it and means something similar as to know was spoken way back the day after Babel. Isn't that cool to think about? Yeah. We got our word from the same ancient source that the Greeks did. It's that old. So when you talk about I don't know, you're talking very ancient language. That's just fascinating. So now, why did the people translating for the King James Version choose the word science? So I looked up what it meant way back, because remember, when was the King James translated? 1611. It hadn't been that long since the canon had made castles not as safe a place as they had been during the times of the knights. It's a very ancient translation and has actually really helped English not change as quickly as a lot of other languages. So, back starting about 150 years before the King James was translated, science was starting to be used as this. This is also from Online Etymology Dictionary. What is known? Knowledge of something acquired by study. Information. The assurance of knowledge. Certitude. Certainty. Comes from the Latin word scientia, which means knowing, expertness, and from a root probably meaning to separate one thing from another, to distinguish. To say, okay, this is different from that, and here's why. Does that sound like science?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah, think about it. When we're looking at the kinds of animals and deciding which species to put it in, that is all about separating. We're going to be talking about minerals later, and we separate the minerals into classes based on their characteristics. We're putting them into groups. That's a lot of what science is. But you can see the word is also a lot bigger than how we use science. Today, it just means studying stuff in the natural world. It used to mean everything that you could know. It wasn't until over 100 years after the King James was translated that the word science started to be used for something a lot more like how we use it. Then there's one more translation that when I was looking up, and I really loved how the guy put it in the Message, which was written by a pastor to help his people just get the sense of the Bible without having to think too hard. So here's what he said. And oh, my dear Timothy, guard the treasure you were given. Guard it with your life. Avoid the talk show religion and the practiced confusion of the so-called experts. People caught up in a lot of talk can miss the whole point of faith. Overwhelming grace keep you. When we look at what they're teaching about evolution on the TV and in books and in museums, does it remind you of what he's saying here in this verse? Do they think they're experts?
No.
Yes.
Yes, they do. Do they think, well, it's possible it could be millions of years. It could be just thousands, but we don't really know. And do they talk like that at museums?
No.
No.
Millions of years.
And do they say there's any possibility of doubt that they could be wrong?
No.
Sometimes, yes.
Where? On millions of years. At a secular museum, they will never admit the possibility that it could be like the dinosaurs. That the dinosaurs, because of the soft tissue, they would never let the possibility that maybe this T-Rex only died 30,000 years ago into a museum.
Yes.
Yeah. So although this word science, when you read the King James, Paul isn't just saying you're going to have a lot of people trying to use geology and biology to tell you that the Bible is wrong. That's not what he was talking about. But he is saying people will try to use their understanding of the world, their knowledge, to try to tell you that the Bible is wrong. And they'll miss the whole point of faith. So in every age, in every culture, it can change what people will say. But those who do not accept God and the Bible will always be trying to use something to tell us God is wrong. And in our culture and in where we live, they often do use science. So it comes in kind of handy that we have a translation that even uses that word. So then I wanted to see how the word gnosis in the New Testament is used. And it's used, I think it was 28 times in total. And this place is the only place where it's used in a bad sense. Almost all the other places it's used as knowledge. And except for one place where it was the Jewish people who claimed to have knowledge because they followed the Bible, it's always used as a very good thing. Here's an example. In Romans 11:33, the same word gnosis is used to say, oh, the depths of the riches both of the wisdom and knowledge of God. How unsearchable are his judgments and his ways past finding out. So there, that word gnosis is talking about
God.
God himself has this. He understands things in a way that we would call science plus a lot more. And in 1 Corinthians, Paul was stating that in everything ye are enriched by him in all utterance and in all knowledge. So God helps us also to have knowledge. And in 2 Peter, he says, and beside this, giving all diligence, add to your faith virtue. So you already believe, add to that character, and to virtue, knowledge. God wants us to learn, to understand all kinds of things, science, and lots more. So he is very, very interested in us learning like we are in this podcast. Isn't that cool?
Yes.
Yeah. All right. We've been wanting to share with you a new DVD that came out a few months ago that's designed especially to help, high school students understand what's happening in their textbooks. I've been in contact with Pat Roy, who used to work for the Institute for Creation Research, and he's the one who helped set up the Jonathan Park audio dramas that are designed for children. And recently he's been helping out at Genesis Apologetics. Last year, they decided to do a video series to help students who are going to public school, which is the vast majority, even in churches. It's like over 90% of kids who go to church are in public schools using their textbooks. So they decided to do a video series called Debunking Evolution. And what's cool is, how is it set up? Is it really fancy with footage of the Grand Canyon and lots of CG effects?
It's just them by a table.
Them.
Sometimes.
Who's them?
The two main characters.
Right. So their characters' names are John and Jane. And it's just them the whole time. You never see anybody else.
Well, no.
No,
Except for Jeopardy.
Oh, okay. That's true. There was one dream sequence with another guy. But what are they doing? What do you always see them holding at some point in each lesson?
They're always talking about the stuff inside their textbook.
Right. What's awesome is those are real textbooks really used by all the students in California and in other states. So they're not making straw man arguments where they're saying, here's this crazy stuff evolutionists claim, and the evolutionists say, what? Wait, we don't say that. They're actually using the textbooks that high school students are using. Okay, but you aren't in high school yet, Joseph.
No.
What did you think of the video series?
I liked them.
Yeah? Why?
They were funny.
Yes. I was very impressed. I've watched quite a number of creation videos. A lot of them are just like watching a sermon, except with cool slides sometimes, where a guy's up there talking. This was nothing like that. They were quite funny. What else? I saw they posted on Facebook when they were actually doing the video with a lot of behind the scenes stuff. So you don't see it on the videos, but they're just in a fairly small studio cluttered with lots of things and the lights and cords and all. But in what you see is usually just a white background, like a sheet, like when you go to get your photo taken at a studio, and a table. That's usually all you see. But what else do they have besides their schoolwork?
Sometimes they have like baseball bats, hats, food.
Yeah, they have a lot of different props that they would bring in, and it would connect in some way with what they were talking about. Yeah, so it was funny. Do you remember any of the topics that they talked about? What was the most fun for you or most interesting?
I like the whale evolution because they had a Jeopardy kind of thing.
Yeah, that was the fanciest setup. How does it start? Because they don't have it that it's actually happening.
So John gets food with Jane and then falls asleep and then dreams that they are playing Jeopardy, and at the end he says, "You won a cold hamburger."
Yes.
And he says, "What?"
Yeah.
And then he wakes up, and then she's tapping him and saying, "Your hamburgers are getting cold."
Yeah. And it was cool because that way you had a lot of facts about these names of fossils that they found and named, like ambulocetus. Do you remember what that meant? Ambulance means like a hospital on wheels that can get around to you. So ambulo means to be able to walk around, and cetus is the word for whale. So it means a walking whale. But did it actually look like a walking whale when they...
No.
Yeah. So they put in a bunch of fancy names, Pakicetus and a bunch of others. But they made it interesting because they had it set up as if it was a Jeopardy game. Yeah. And there was one point where she accidentally knocks him out with a baseball
bat when she was practicing for her baseball game.
Right.
And she was batting for evolution, and he was pitching for creationist.
Right.
And that was the fossil one. So she was saying what she was gonna swing with, like the evolutionist idea. And then after she got a strike, she would ask what pitch he threw, and he would have a creationist fossil.
Right. An answer.
And then when she got 3 strikes and went out, they traded places, and he made a home run.
Right. And there was another one. Let's see. Oh, yeah. She smashed his phone because he said he got this unbreakable case, but then he hadn't told her that he hadn't put his phone in the case yet. So then they had to try to put it together, and then they tied that in. What was that topic? Do you remember?
About the big continent, I think.
Ah, yeah. The tectonic plates, how they split apart. Right. So they had all kinds of visuals to pull you in and make you laugh even as you're learning, and just enough information so that you could know there are answers to everything in the textbook. And what's great, I was looking on their website, debunkevolution.com. And they have lots more information where you can learn more about it. So what's awesome is you can go to debunkevolution.com and get these DVDs. They will send them to you for free. You can get a whole pack if you've got a church or school, people that you know you can pass them out to. They do not make money off of these. They just do it because they care about young people. And as you can hear, you don't have to be 14, 15 or older in order to appreciate these. Yeah, there have been a couple other well-produced creation resources that you enjoyed, but I think this was the funniest, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah, except for A Bit of Orange on YouTube. He is far and away the funniest, but he hasn't been producing much on evolution lately. Okay, so we want to make sure you knew about that. Go check them out, and I will have a link for that in the show notes, creationscience4kids.com/knowledge. Now it's time to hear from you. What do you have for us today, Samuel?
Crystals.
And Stephen?
I have minerals.
All right. So you did an experiment, Samuel. What did you do?
We made sugar crystals.
Uh-huh. So what did you have to do first?
First, we had to put in 5 cups of sugar.
Right. So a lot of sugar into
a pot, and then we had...
Did you just sugar in the pot?
And water.
Water. Mm-hmm.
And then we cooked it.
Until?
Sugar melted.
Right.
And then it became clear.
Mm-hmm. Because when you buy sugar from the store, it already is crystals. But what do those crystals look like?
To me, they look like diamond squares.
Yeah, but how big are they?
Small.
They're very tiny. You really need a microscope to see the sugar crystals properly when you get them from the store. Okay.
The sugar crystals look like white sand, and they're even the size of sand.
Right. They're very much like that. Okay. So then we made the sugar syrup, and because we wanted it to be a fun experiment, we added what to the syrup?
Vanilla.
Extracts. So different flavors, and
we put in food coloring.
Right. And did we do that? Did you do that this morning?
No, we did it 1 week ago.
Yes, that's one of the important parts. Okay, so then we put it in the corner of the kitchen counter so that nothing would bump it. And we put what in the water?
Sticks.
So that
they could form onto them, and so we could eat them.
Yes, because when we went to check the crystals today, where did we notice that the most crystals actually were?
At the bottom.
Yeah, at the bottom, around on the sides of the glasses, and a crust on top. But that's kind of hard to lick, isn't it?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay, now, this is one of the things I don't tend to enjoy actual experiments because they are so unpredictable and hard to get them to turn out as well as they describe in the books. So on the book we used, it had beautiful sugar crystals, a lot like you can buy at a store. But when we made them, ours were a lot smaller, weren't they?
Yes.
Yeah, so we're actually going to leave our crystals to grow for another week, and hopefully they'll get bigger.
2
But
weeks.
we did take a couple out, and what did you notice? Did it look like the sugar from the bag anymore?
No, it looked like clear sugar that you could see straight through.
Yeah, so it was very clear. And what about the size of the crystals?
They were teensy tiny.
Were they as small as the sugar that comes in the bag?
No.
No, so they were...
Smaller.
What?
No, they were bigger.
Yeah, and were they the same shape? Did they look more or less like dice anymore?
No.
No. Can you think of a shape that it reminded you of?
A square.
Were they square? The ends weren't. I thought they looked rather like,
Punched up diamonds?
yeah, like diamonds. Like a calligraphy pen or a marker that has a flat tip at the end. Like a whiteboard marker. That it would come to a point, but where it had a long point. Did you notice that?
No.
Okay. So what was that process called? The sugar turning from syrup into those beautiful crystals. It's called crystallization. And lots of things crystallize. Here, have a look at this. See that picture? What do you see?
Long crystals.
Very long crystals, sharp and pokey. And what else is in there besides crystals?
A man.
A man. And how big is he?
Smaller than the crystals.
Oh my, is he ever smaller? This is a new place that they just discovered in 2007. It's in Mexico, I believe. These crystals are, here, some of them are as long as 36 feet, which is 11 meters. Oh yeah, here. It's in Mexico. This cave that he's standing in was flooded with water that had a whole bunch of gypsum dissolved in it. Gypsum is actually the stuff that they make into drywall. So most of our modern houses, at least in America, are covered in this gypsum. That looks a lot prettier, doesn't it?
Wait a minute. I have some gypsum.
Yeah, you're going to talk about gypsum. Okay, so that's a good point. But as you see, this was warm water with lots of minerals in it. Let's see. Temperatures hovered constantly about 136 degrees Fahrenheit, which is 58 degrees Celsius. So you would not have wanted to swim in that. You would have gotten burned. But because it was hot, mineral-rich water, it grew these incredibly huge crystals. And are they ever pretty? I will include a link to this. I found it on National Geographic News, had the picture. So that is crystallization. Still water with lots of stuff in it can grow crystals if those particular substances are good at building crystals. All right. So now let's move on to yours, Stephen. So you're going to tell us about what that you got for Christmas.
I've got some minerals.
You got a mineral kit. How many minerals did you get?
15.
15. Now, what was awesome, a while back, I mentioned that Cornerstone Geology Supply, our education supply, gave me a couple of fossil kits that we've talked about and a geology kit in exchange for letting you all know about how cool they are. Because what's awesome, the guy who runs Cornerstone Geology, is actually on that new movie that just came out, is Genesis History. He's the geologist on it, and he sells supplies to homeschoolers and Christian schools. So he gave us very nice things. His magnifying glass and the streak stone and stuff that he gave us was much nicer than what came with his mineral set. But we hadn't had the minerals to test. So now we've been able to try them out. Oh, and you can find links to him. It's always on the sidebar of my website if you are on a PC. And I will also have a link in the show notes. Okay, so now, Stephen, tell us, what did we do today to explore what your minerals do?
Okay, so we used the vinegar. Mm-hmm. We put it in the middle of my calcite. And so it made bubbles.
It did. Tiny bubbles. And what did I show you worked the same way, except it's a lot more obvious. What else did we drip vinegar onto and it made bubbles?
Baking soda.
Baking soda. That everybody knows. You make baking soda volcano, and that's a lot of fun. But calcite looks just like a rock. It's a rock. And our sample is brown. Now, you can see it would turn into crystal if it was dissolved in water somehow. You can see these shiny edges where it shears off beautifully smooth. But it had one spot where we were able to drip some vinegar in, and it made tiny bubbles. Okay, so that was really cool. And it has calcium and carbon in it. That is why it bubbles and reacts with the vinegar. Okay, so that was something that we used from our geology kit from Cornerstone. And what else did we do?
Let's see. We used my magnetite. We used the magnetite to see how it stuck to metal.
It doesn't actually, did it stick to the refrigerator, your magnetite rock?
No.
No, but it did stick to
one of our magnets.
A magnet that came with our geology kit. Yeah, so that was cool to realize we could use that. And what's it look like?
It looks like a shiny black rock.
Yeah, and it also has more flat faces, but not as large as the calcite flat faces. Okay, so we've used our vinegar, we used our magnet. What else had come with our geology kit that we wanted to try out?
I'll tell you all the names.
All right, go ahead.
Fluorite, feldspar, microline.
Yeah, that's one.
Hematite, pyrite, quartz milky, calcite, mica muscovite, magnetite, gypsum. Albaster,
okay,
talc, pyrolusite, mica biotite, graphite, gypsum, satin spar, gypsum selenite.
Okay, so we have 3 gypsums. So number 9, 14, and 15 are all gypsum. And remember, what did we just talk about that the gypsum could turn into?
It could turn into a crystal.
Giant crystal. So your piece, this one, the gypsum selenite, could you imagine that being a giant crystal?
I could if it were in my dreams.
But why? Why can you imagine it would make a good crystal? What's it look like?
It looks like a very clear rock.
Yeah, you can see right through it. It's almost like glass that's been scratched some. So yes, it is very clear. So that might be very much like what happened there in Mexico to make those giant crystals. Okay, and then we did something with the quartz. What did we do with the quartz? That was very interesting.
We scratched some glass with it.
You scratched some what?
We scratched some glass with it. And what was exciting, it was the only one of my minerals that could scratch the glass.
Right. Glass is pretty hard. It's made out of mineral itself, silica, and only things that are even harder than silica can scratch the glass. So a lot of those are precious stones, like diamonds can scratch anything, and sapphires and things, but those tend to be quite expensive, and you're not going to get a big hunk of ruby in your minerals. But quartz, there's lots of it around, and it is also quite hard. So you got to scratch a glass and not get in trouble. Okay. And then, what is that you're holding?
Oh, yeah, I'm holding mica.
What's special? That's one of my favorite minerals of all.
It's so beautiful. It looks like gold. And sometimes the people make windows out of it to see how the fire is doing.
Right. I've actually seen back in the Victorian times when they'd have pot-bellied stoves, they would make small windows out of mica glass because you can sort of see through it, and it's a mineral, so it can handle heat well. And it's not exactly like gold that it shines. It's like silvery, but a little warm. What I love, if you ever get out to Mount Rushmore in South Dakota, there is a whole bunch of mica in the dirt there. When I was walking around, it was almost as fascinating to me to look at the dirt because it was so sparkly with the tiny flecks of mica that was as exciting to me as getting to see the carvings that the guy had made of the presidents. Oh, yes, and the graphite. Tell me about the graphite.
Wait, what number is it?
Let's see. 13. What color is it?
It's so shiny black.
Yes, and what did you do with it? I told you. I gave you a piece of paper.
The paper.
And what did you do with it?
I drew with it.
That's right.
It was exciting. I realized it was what the pencil lead was made out of.
I told you that. Yes. Pencil leads, the middle of it, have graphite. And what is graphite made out of? Do you remember?
I don't remember.
Carbon. Carbon is one of the basic building blocks. We have lots of carbon in our bodies. But do you know what else is made out of carbon that you could not draw a picture with?
What?
Diamonds. If you were to take a piece of graphite and squeeze it under hot conditions, you could make a diamond out of it.
I want to do that.
That's a little difficult. And you couldn't make a diamond that was beautiful like God does. When people make diamonds, for the most part, they're not very pretty and they're small. But having a piece of graphite is pretty cool. So we've had a lot of fun where we were looking at, and they sell this on Cornerstone Education Supply, fluorescent light, because the calcite would glow under it, but that costs like $45. So maybe for your birthday, if you're still interested.
Is pretty cool.
What's pretty cool?
My talc.
Talc. Yeah, talc is very soft, isn't it?
Yeah.
Does it feel greasy to you?
A tiny bit.
Yeah, that's what they make baby powder out of. Because so when you grind it, it makes a soft white powder that helps your skin get dry. So we had a lot of fun exploring our minerals and trying out the different things. Did we use the nail to see if it would scratch anything? I think we forgot to do that.
Yeah, we forgot to do that.
Yeah, because some of these, we want to keep our rock collection nice, at least until we have a spare one. But it's so much fun to explore these minerals, and both the mineral collections and the fossils come in boxes that remind me so much of chocolate, except you can get them out, enjoy them, put them away, and come back later, and they're still there. That does not work with a Valentine's chocolate box, does it?
No.
All right, that's enough.
Where did the rock sleep?
I don't know. Where did it?
In a bedrock.
Do you know what a bedrock is?
No.
That's where the rock hasn't been broken off. It's still solid in the ground where God put it, or the flood laid it. So do you think it would be sleeping in there?
No.
Yes, it would. All right. Thank you, Stephen.
Don't forget, you can find links to all the things we've talked about today by visiting the show notes page, creationScience4kids.com/knowledge/054 for episode 54.
While you're there, I'd like to ask for your help. If you know someone who might enjoy listening to this podcast and checking out my website, would you let them know for us? Every article I do, including today's show notes, has share buttons to make it super easy for you to pass on to your friends on Facebook or by email. You have amazing power to help your friends find out the truth with just a click of a button.
Plus, if you want to encourage us, leaving the show a rating on iTunes is a great way to do that and help families looking for new podcasts to find us. Thanks.
Has your family signed up for my weekly email newsletter? Once a week, I share interesting creation resources. Like that is Genesis History movie that recently came out that I've run into, as well as the link to that week's article, which means you won't have to bother remembering how to find the show notes again. Plus, you'll have access to the amazing collection of kids' creation resources I've discovered over the past 5 years. Whether you want to play games, find a science curriculum, plan a vacation, or watch fun videos, you'll find the links in a flash on my page. You can sign up in a couple of seconds from the show notes, but to see why I care so much about making creation science fun for kids, visit creationscience4kids.com/kidsresources.
Do you like science? Got a subject you want to learn about? Or maybe you like telling stories?
Remember, it's super easy to turn your smartphone into a recorder, and if you send me a report, story, joke, or interesting idea, I might use it in a future show. Head over to creationscience4kids.com/podcast to find out what to do.
Well, this finishes up our show for today. Until next time, have fun and treasuring our amazing universe and Creator.
Thou art worthy, O Lord, to receive glory and honor and power, for thou hast created all things, and for thy pleasure They are and were created. Revelation 4:11.